It's a great honor for me to be here at the Empire Club of Canada today, which is arguably the most famous and historically relevant speakers podium to have ever existed in Canada. It has offered its podium to such international luminaries as Winston Churchill, Ronald Reagan, Audrey Hepburn, the Dalai Lama, Indira Gandhi, and closer to home, from Pierre Trudeau to Justin Trudeau. Literally generations of our great nation's leaders, alongside with those of the world's top international diplomats, heads of state, and business and thought leaders.
It is a real honor and a distinct privilege to be invited to speak to the Empire Club of Canada, which has been welcoming international diplomats, leaders in business and in science and in politics. When they stand at that podium, they speak not only to the entire country, but they can speak to the entire world.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Empire Club of Canada, the country's go-to forum for conversations that matter for 120 years now. To formally begin this afternoon, I want to acknowledge that we're gathering today on the traditional and treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit and the homelands of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. Their stewardship of this land, their profound cultural heritage, and continued connection to these territories are essential parts of Toronto's identity. We encourage everyone to learn more about the traditional territory on which you work and live. This is an essential step to reconciliation, and each and every one of us has a role to play. Today, we have the pleasure of welcoming Hydro One's President and CEO, David Lebeter, in his inaugural address to the Empire Club of Canada. Welcome, David. It's great to have you. The Empire Club of Canada is a not-for-profit organization, and we'd like to recognize our sponsors who generously support the club and make these events possible and complimentary for our online viewers to attend. Thank you to our lead event sponsor, Aecon. Thanks, Troy. Thank you to our VIP reception sponsors, Black & McDonald, Burns & McDonnell, Composite Power Group, Cormorant Utility Services, LaUna, PricewaterhouseCoopers, RBC Capital Markets, Safeline Utility Services, Inc., Ballard, and Waste Connections of Canada. And thank you to our supporting sponsors, BGIS, CIBC, Deloitte, National Bank, OEC, and TD. Lastly, thank you to our season sponsors, AWS, Bruce Power, and Hydro One. As Ontario's largest electricity transmission and distribution service provider, Hydro One has a critical role in enabling a clean energy future for Ontario. We have important ambitions here in our province. The provincial government indicated that $400 billion of investment was needed to support the electricity grid between now and 2050. This means that our electricity sector will undergo a profound and rapid transformation over the next few years. Now, if you've spoken with David recently, you might have noticed that there's one word that he uses a lot. And I think it's important to highlight it as it frames not only an approach and a business model for Hydro One, but also a very important commitment. And that word is partnerships. David speaks a lot about partnerships with Indigenous communities based on trust, respect, and understanding, with the common objective to learn, amplify impact, and advance Ontario's energy sector. So today, we will hear about Hydro One's industry-leading 50-50 equity partnerships with First Nations for their transmission line projects. Strategic partnerships that create win-win situations and that de-risk projects and investments. Partnerships that unlock opportunities for innovation, development, for economic empowerment and economic reconciliation for generations to come. Indigenous leadership, expertise, and partnerships are crucial to move our energy sector forward. And if we want to build a prosperous, clean province and country for all of us. It's really important. Of course, this is just one of Hydro One's strategy and visions, one part. I'm looking forward to hearing more from David, and we'll accept questions from the audience. For the speaker, for those of you in the room, you can undertake to scan that QR code found in the program booklet. I want to thank you all for being a part of the Empire Club community. Please engage in the discussion, ask questions, put your ideas forward. I would now like to take this opportunity to invite my dear friend, Jerome Julier, Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer at Aecon, to offer the welcoming remarks.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Sal. Sal's a longtime friend. We went to university together. Huge amount of respect for the Empire Club. Aecon's proud to be lead sponsor for the event today. Very much looking forward to the discussion that David's going to bring forward. There's a lot to talk about. It's my honor to introduce David today, President and CEO of Hydro One. Hydro One speaks, and everyone's program booklet will have it on the front, Energizing Life Every Day. I think it says today and tomorrow. We at Aecon see this as effectively just delivering electricity for everyday life, meet evolving customer needs, community needs, and global expectations for what Ontario and Canada has to offer. We all know these expectations are absolutely massive demand from economic and population growth, infrastructure and industrial electrification, industrial reshoring of activities coming back home to North America, AI-driven power demands, and growth in EVs. Electricity demands on trend to effectively double by 2050, and we need to be ahead of the game to figure that out. This is going to result in a lot of ongoing investment. Sal just mentioned $400 billion across sectors to build the capacity we need to meet these demands for future generations, for our kids, our future kids, their kids, and all the people who are going to come to Canada as new Canadians. It's important, and it's certainly welcomed by all the teams at Aecon as we build the critical infrastructure that's going to help meet that demand. David's going to delve into it. Partnerships are critical to deliver the infrastructure through projects of increasing scale and complexity, involving a lot of stakeholders and communities, very multifaceted, and that's something that needs to be addressed through partnership. It's the only way to get it done. The industry experiences this growth. Our partnerships are going to continue to grow and evolve to meet the challenge. In particular, Hydro One, just use an example, and Aecon today are partnered on the Chatham to Lakeshore Transmission Line. It's a 49-kilometer project that is going to help meet growing electricity needs in southwestern Ontario, helping to deliver clean Ontario energy to where it needs to get. Aligning our shared commitments to collaborate and partner with our Indigenous communities, a significant portion of that work is included in procurement and purchases from Indigenous subcontractors and businesses. We're very proud of that. It's critical to Aecon and our communities at large. So while we proudly deliver some of the most complex infrastructure projects in North America with a strategic focus on energy transition, we very much continue the work with Hydro One. I'd say that we want to deliver clean, affordable energy across Ontario. Now, today's keynote address, we're going to hear a lot of these important topics directly from David, who, with Hydro One, sits at the focal point of it all. At the helm of Hydro One since the beginning of last year, Chief Operating Officer for the 3 years prior to that. He's got deep experience, and I'm really looking forward to hear what he has to say on it. It's my pleasure now to welcome David to the stage for his inaugural address at the Empire Club. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerome, and thank you for that very warm Empire Club welcome. I could expect nothing less. Such a privilege to be here today. More importantly, thanks for coming out to today. Your time is valuable, and I know that. So it means a lot that you're here to listen to me talk about something that matters deeply to me, matters to Hydro One, and to our province. Now, before I do that, I have to say, back when I was starting out in the workforce, clearing brush, working in whatever conditions Mother Nature threw at us, I never imagined that someday I'd be speaking to leaders at the Empire Club. I wish I could go back and tell that skinny kid how grateful I am to be here right now. I was skinny at one time. That's why today, in honor of being here at this great Canadian institution, you ready for it? I wore my very best formal jeans. Come on. Truth be told, I also wanted to wear a plaid jacket, and I'm told that in Ontario, those are called the Thunder Bay dinner jacket. Somebody else has one, there we go. But my wife said that was going a little bit too far, so well, maybe next time I'll do that, but today I didn't do that. But here's the thing, my story isn't unique. I bet if I surveyed people in this room, many of you would tell me you started at an entry-level job in your workplace and you worked your way up to the top. I bet you have stories of back-breaking summer jobs that paid for school. And that's what's so cool about Canadians. We're scrappy. We're not afraid to roll up our sleeves or rip them off, and let's just get the job done. I've seen it. When I was that skinny kid in the West Coast in the 60s and 70s, just after Expo 67, don't try to guess my age, there was energy in this country that was, pardon the dad joke, electrifying. We believed we could do anything, and we did. We carved roads out of the bedrock. We built bridges across raging rivers. We connected this country with electrical wires from coast to coast to coast. Canadians worked together to transform Canada for decades to come. And guess what? We're doing it again. Because we are adapting. Because our world is changing faster than any of us anticipated. This year, global sales of electric vehicles are up 20% over last year. 1 in every 5 vehicles sold in the world this year will be electric. No one saw that coming. People are switching from oil and gas to electric heat pumps. No one saw that coming. AI data centers are using 2% of the global electricity. That's equal to Canada's national electricity consumption. And AI is just getting started. Again, no one saw it coming. I'm reminded of an old black and white picture taken on 5th Avenue, New York City in the 1900s. It was all horses and buggies. They took a picture in the same spot about a decade later, and it was all cars. Can you imagine what a wild moment that was? One day you're almost being run over by a horse, and the next day it's a Ford Model T coming down the road at you. To me, that's a reminder that sometimes massive change comes at you very fast. And I believe that's where we are now. I believe we're at an electrification inflection point. Jerome used that word about an inflection point. The tools we have are getting quieter, faster, smarter, and cleaner than ever before. And as history shows, it's going to happen faster than we think. It's already starting. All of this is good news for the planet, for my daughter, my grandkids, and their children, and many future generations. Because electrification is better in a warming world. But it also means we have to support the growth with new infrastructure, an expanding distribution system, new transmission wires, new electricity generation, and new tech. And guess what? We can do it. As I said, we've seen it done before, and we can do it again. And the best part is we're going to move forward in new ways and smarter ways. Because if you want to build something different, you have to be something different. And that's really what I want to talk about today. I want to paint a picture of the future of the electricity sector in Ontario for you. And I'm going to talk about 3 things: where we were, where we are, and where we're going. As Hydro One, as a province, and as a country. Then I'll tell you where you come in. Yes, you have a part to play in this. First, let's talk about where we were. In 1873, the first electric light was switched on in Canada. We adopted electricity fast after that. In 1881, hydroelectric power became the first form of commercial electricity in Canada. And in 1882, the lights were turned on in the federal parliament buildings. In 1906, the Hydroelectric Power Commission was created by the Ontario legislature. For 50 years after that, the grid expanded fast. It sparked industry. It created jobs. It attracted immigrants. It led to a housing boom. And we grew up as a nation powered by electricity. Moving from that first electric light in Winnipeg to the whole country being lit up took just a few decades. And Hydro One was there almost from the beginning. By the early 1970s, all of Ontario's power systems had been merged, and we had one big, powerful grid. So, where are we now? That brings me to my second point, where the Ontario energy sector is today. Now, I'm not going to talk about electricity generation. Hydro One's business is in energy transmission and distribution. And our partners in the generation sector, some of you whom are here today, have a different part of that business. As a very basic explanation, I tell my friends to think of it like a car. We're the Formula One car that gets you from start to finish, and they're the engine under the hood. The energy sector is an exciting place to be right now, and Hydro One is the center of it all. For my part, I have to say, it is the privilege of my life to lead a company that plays such an important role in powering Ontario's economy forward into the future. We operate more than 90% of Ontario's transmission system, and we serve 1.5 million customers in our province. Through Hydro One Remote Communities, we serve 24 communities in Ontario's far north. Our unregulated AUX company provides business-to-business energy solutions. And we co-own Ivy Charging Network, a growing company that provides reliable charging solutions for EV owners. But Hydro One is so much more than that. Electricity continues to be the backbone of our country and our economy. And it's changing right before our eyes. When I started out in the industry, very few people were talking about promoting clean energy. Today, it's business imperative. Countries around the world are working together on decarbonization. Governments, Ontario included, are investing in research and development of new, cleaner technologies to create economic growth and jobs. Governments are also bringing manufacturing and mining of raw materials within their own borders. And they are creating new incentives for industry too. For example, Canada's 2024 federal budget included a new investment tax credit to support the EV supply chain manufacturing sector. It also created the Indigenous Loan Guarantee Program. Let's have a round of applause for that particular program. I think it's fantastic. Closer to home, Ontario is launching a new Ontario-made manufacturing investment tax credit. But let's be clear, it's not just about government making things happen. This is in response to market demand. We have lots of experts from Canada's financial institutions in the room today, and you know the markets demand carbon disclosures, sustainability, clean and renewable energy on top of profits. All of that is being driven by people, by customers who want options, not just homeowners, but by industries that are looking to decarbonize, looking to electrify operations, or, as we've seen recently, set up shop in Ontario. They want battery storage options for peak periods and reliability. Homeowners are plugging in their vehicles in their garages. Entrepreneurs, and again, visionary types, want to connect their own generation and storage solutions and send electrons back onto the grid. The point is, industrial, commercial, and residential customers care more about clean energy now than ever before. And demand is up because of fuel switching in industries, homes, and transportation. It's up thanks to population growth and immigration, and because of agriculture, and because of data centers that run AI, cryptocurrency, and cloud services. The grid we built was a great achievement, the pulsing heartbeat of North America. But we need to revitalize and expand it to handle all that new demand. And Hydro One is doing that as we speak, and we need to keep on this path. Before we talk about my third point, which is where are we going, we need to dip back into the past for just a moment. All the electricity expansion we saw in Ontario in the early 20th century was about giving access to electricity for municipalities, industry, and farmers. Yes, the expansion was ambitious, and it was very impressive. But two things can be true at the same time. It also reflected a colonial mindset. Indigenous people and communities were not consulted. Often, their communities were not connected to the grid. Hydro lines and generating stations were built through traditional territory, burial grounds were flooded, and Indigenous communities were displaced. There was no partnership or benefits for Indigenous peoples and communities. Let's just let that sink in for a minute. There was no partnerships or benefits for Indigenous peoples or communities. But back to my third point. Yes, as we move forward, we need to be ambitious. But this time, as Hydro One builds a better future, we're going to be ambitious together. We're not going to repeat the sins of the past. We're moving forward in partnership with Indigenous people. Thank you. As we expand, Hydro One is offering equity to First Nations for new transmission lines. We are building relationships before we build infrastructure. Take Hydro One's Waasigan partnership as an example. We're building a new transmission line from Atikokan, Thunder Bay, Dryden. Got that in the wrong order, but it doesn't matter. This greenfield line goes through the traditional territories of 9 First Nations, and I'll be really frank, it didn't start out on the right foot. Now we're working together with these nations as we plan, develop, and engage. And I'm proud to say Hydro One launched our 50-50 equity partnership model with this project. Those 9 First Nations will have 50% equity ownership in the line. They get to share in the benefits and the ownership of that line. And the model applies to every future transmission line over $100 million. This will also help infrastructure get built better and faster as we share in the benefits. I hope history will see this as meaningful reconciliation. We aren't approaching these relationships like we have all the answers, because you know what? We don't. We are asking for the input of our partners on how projects should be developed and how they should be maintained. And beyond our 50-50 equity partnership model with First Nations, we are working with communities to address their fundamental needs and their desires before proposing programs and partnerships. Moving forward, Indigenous partners will continue to be integral to sustainable growth, and their participation will help us meet the needs of Ontario now and for future generations. In fact, all our partnerships are changing how Hydro One develops, builds, and owns infrastructure in our province for the better. For example, Hydro One is pitching in to solve the problem of extending high-speed internet to rural areas in Ontario. We've gone above industry norms by allowing telecom operators and internet service providers to replace our poles and work independently on our infrastructure, provided they meet our safety and quality standards. We're doing this work because we are a team player when it comes to Ontario's economy and the quality of life. Another way Hydro One has taken a more active role in the future of Ontario's economic development is by getting involved earlier. When the Stellantis and Volkswagen battery plants were being negotiated, we didn't wait for signed customer service agreements. We know that Ontario needs significant new transmission infrastructure to support these facilities and the jobs that come with them. So, we got started right away. We ordered equipment early to avoid supply chain delays. That's our way of helping Ontario be open for business, the business of the future. And I think every utility has to do that. Every person in this room has to do this. Like I said, I started my career clearing brush. And you know what? I'm still doing that in a way. I'm still making sure that nothing gets in the way of the future. And I think each of us is in the brush clearing business. Each of us has to focus on solutions that move the economy and our quality of life, the health and well-being of our planet forward. Now look, I'm in the most important part of an amazing career, a career that I'm very proud of. And the work ahead of me is the most exciting work I've ever done. So, I'm rolling up my sleeves. Every day I get to go into the office, I'm clearing the way for the world that our kids and grandkids and their children will inherit. But folks, what a world it'll be. Imagine it. The affordable homes that the next generation needs, powered by clean energy. We're working with the Home Builders Association right now to get those homes built and connected to the grid faster. And in those homes, imagine all the EVs silently charging up at night, connected to secure, and a stable source of power to get people to work and to school in the morning. Imagine all the businesses and dorm rooms and labs where AI will be powered up, helping real people solve real problems in real time. Think of the breakthroughs in medicine and research. A revitalized and expanded reliable grid will make all that happen. New industries will be coming here to tap into our talented workforce. We're already seeing that. I believe we can clear the way for a quieter, faster, smarter, more productive, cleaner, and better future. We can usher in a change our country hasn't seen in more than 100 years, but only if we work together. So, here's where you come in. It's going to take all of us in this room today to make this happen. Everyone at Hydro One working to build the network of transmission and distribution lines, getting electricity into people's homes, vehicles, and businesses, supported by municipal, provincial, and federal governments, in partnership with Indigenous people, the finance sector, the distribution and generation sectors, agriculture, mining, forestry, manufacturing, and research. It's going to take all of us working together to clear the way. And if we can do that, I believe what we will build together will be amazing. It will last for decades to come. So, let's get her done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. I'd now like to take this opportunity to invite Michael Fox, the president of the Indigenous Community Engagement, to the stage for our discussion.
Excellent. Test, test, test. Does it work? All right. I just finished coming back from across the country, and I just wanted to say thank you for asking me to have a chat with you and sort of co-host this. But I always say first things first, and the first things here is the First Peoples, and I just wanted to acknowledge all the Indigenous leaders and business leaders that are in the room. Can you put your hand up so I know where you are or who you are? Thank you. There was a time where there was none. And I always say Friano and I were talking about how things have evolved and being progressive. And I was just in Vancouver at a CIM conference there. I was at the conference in Calgary this week as well. And I was just calculating with my staff. I think it's over $7 billion last year in Indigenous spend across the country. And I stopped. My staff, I wanted the numbers, for this, so I think you're right about, change. Things are things of the past. Things we're dealing with in the present and the future is one of partnerships, I think, as you say. So maybe I'll start with the first question related to Indigenous, so. Given the increase in interest by First Nations and Métis groups to get involved in the energy sector, what is Hydro One doing for Indigenous reconciliation? I know you mentioned some of that. But what is the future vision beyond the financial model for Indigenous reconciliation?
Indigenous reconciliation is a huge topic, and I don't begin to want to try to define what it is. What I'd like to say at Hydro One is we want to change the history and create a different future going forward. One where I'm going to use the word again that Saul said he uses all the time is partnerships. Certainly the 50-50 equity model is an example of that. But we're also going into communities where we don't have any projects, and we want to understand what are their needs, what are their aspirations. I said we serve 24 remote communities through our Hydro One remotes. Those are all Indigenous communities. They have aspirations. And it's not up to us to tell them what those aspirations are, but it's certainly up to us if we can help them achieve those aspirations. We're working really hard to increase our Indigenous employment. We get a target of 3.5%, and I think we're over 4% now. If we're not, we're getting very close to it. So we're working hard to create really satisfying careers that allow people to give back to their communities and create opportunities. We're targeting 5% of all of our procurement spend is with Indigenous businesses. And we're taking a little bit of a different approach. It's not up to us to define what an Indigenous-owned business is. We're leaving that to the nations to tell us this is an Indigenous business, therefore we're happy to do business with them. So we're moving forward on many fronts. And I know when I was at the First Nations Major Project Coalition 2 weeks ago, And there were some great ideas on what we might think about doing in the future. So lots of conversation. It's a dialogue that doesn't end. We got a lot of history to make up for. More importantly, we've got a fantastic future to build, and we're not going to do it on our own, and we're not going to do it the way it was done in the past.
Thank you. Excellent. So for the audience as well, I think there's a scan or something you can actually ask questions, and we can take them up. So I'm going to ask about three more questions or four more questions. There's been much talk about green transition. What does that mean to you in Hydro One?
The green transition for us is about how do we keep this engine that is Ontario and this fantastic life that we have moving forward and getting better while burning less carbon-emitting fuels. I'm going to be a little bit controversial, maybe not. I don't think carbon fuels are ever going to go away, certainly not in my lifespan. But we have a tremendous opportunity. If we can take them out of the home, for home heating, for example, I talked about heat pumps. If we can electrify as much transportation as we can, there's certain sectors of our economy that are easier than others to electrify. If we can do that, we're going to make a significant dent. Right here in Ontario, the steel mills are switching to green steel. They're going to electric arc furnaces. They're moving off coking coal. We're supporting those projects with transmission infrastructure and build. There's just so many, where there's an opportunity to get off of a carbon-based fuel, there's a good business case for it. We're going to be there to support that transition. And really our role is, let's make it happen as quickly as possible. So we want to get out of the way so you can build your projects and run your business. And we want to be as efficient and low cost as possible. So we're not adding burden to your business, again, so you can go run your business and help transition this province and make it the great place that it is.
So the third question here, from EVs to electrifying steelmaking, it's clear that the electricity demand is on the rise. How is Hydro One preparing for this?
We've got an amazing planning team that works in close cooperation with the Independent Electric System Operator, and C. Leslie Gallinger and Chuck Farmer are here. And they're really our partners. We look across the entire province. There's 24 regions. We link in, both of our organizations link in with the government. Where do you have investment coming? What type of investment? How big is the load? When do you need that load? And then we build plans and we start building that infrastructure. So right now, we're working on 9 transmission lines, 5 in the south, 3 in the northeast, and then the Waasigan transmission line probably doesn't have it. It does have that. I got my math right. What do you know? And you know, the Waasigan transmission line, that's an amazing project. It's almost 400 kilometers long. That is really going to unlock the potential of that corner, the northwest corner of the province, for mineral exploration, mineral processing, completing that entire supply chain network within the province of Ontario. So it's looking forward. Where is the demand going to be? Let's get the system ready so when that demand comes, it can plug right in. And I think we're getting better. There's still room we can all do to get better at that.
So this one's one. It says, earlier this year, the government appointed Electrification Energy Transmission Panel released the Clean Energy Opportunity, which says, the transformation towards a clean energy economy, the risk-return balance between proactive build-out of energy infrastructure and reactive planning has shifted. Do you agree? And how does Hydro One need, what does Hydro One need to do to be proactive and invest in the system to address the recommendations?
Sure. I said I wasn't going to talk about generation, but I can talk about it now. I'm not behind the podium anymore. Ontario, if you don't realize it, Ontario is a very special place. You know, we're rebuilding and building new nuclear fleet. It's a renaissance in nuclear going on in this province. We already have a strong base of renewables, and the ISO is increasing the renewable penetration. They're also increasing and creating battery storage. So all the right agreed, you've got nuclear generation, hydroelectric, renewables, and batteries. And I challenge you to find another place in the world that is undergoing that kind of an investment profile right now in terms of getting ready for the future. Now, why that's important is when businesses are looking to locate, they want clean energy. It doesn't do you any good if you're making an electric vehicle with coal. If your energy is coming from coal, it defeats. So one, they want to find a place that has clean energy. They need some place that has stable energy. They want a stable government, stable regulatory regime. And as I said in my speech, they want to know the supply chain sits within that same jurisdiction so they don't get caught in the same way that we saw Europe get caught with natural gas supply when Russia invaded the Ukraine. Now, we have competitors across the border. States across the border would love to get the same investments that we've been getting. And many of them, we saw the hollowing out of the industrial part of the United States when they exported all their jobs and manufacturing offshore. But those sites are still there, and they have energy infrastructure bringing power to them. So that's who we're competing with. So if I'm looking at making an investment I want to build something, I'm going to look at where do I have the best supply chain, the most skilled labor force, the cleanest energy, and I'm going to look at costs. And then I'm going to look at how quickly can they service me. So if we don't build our infrastructure a little bit earlier than we have been in the past, anticipating where these loads are going to come, and we have a pretty good idea between ourselves, the independent electric system operator, and the government, we have a pretty good idea where these investments are going to need to be made. If we build that, it's a little bit of build it and they will come. Because if you're not ready when they show up and they want to put in 1,000 megawatts or 500 megawatts of load, and someone down across the border says, hang on, I got a site here you can use, then you lose that investment. And when these massive investments are made, they're gone forever. So I do think we need to be a little bit more proactive. The system we've had for the last 50 years was not experiencing the kind of growth we're seeing now, so we have to adjust.
Excuse me, guys. So I worked in the water power before in Northern Ontario, and it was pretty progressive back then in terms of the enabling mechanisms for to get into for First Nations and Métis groups to get into generation of all types, and that included the Ontario Finance Authority Aboriginal loan guarantee, which enabled a lot of equity ownership. Now, now there's a renewal, so I'm going to say this one question here. The Ministry of Energy in the IESO has made it clear the upcoming procurement for non-emitting resources will place an emphasis on Northern Ontario and the economic participation of Indigenous communities. The design of the next procurement, scheduled for later this year, LT2, up to 2,000 megawatts, specifies that the connectability will be assessed at the time of commercial operations, 5 to 8 years from now. How is Hydro One preparing for the required concurrent build-out of transmission-enabled new generations such as water power, which is sort of a fixed and known location?
Well, the Waasigan, as I mentioned, the Waasigan transmission line runs right through from Thunder Bay to Atikokan and through to Dryden. And that's going to open up that whole stretch. That's a transmission line that can both deliver electricity to supply load. It can also take generation, whether it's hydroelectric or wind, and then bring it back and get it down into the south or wherever it's needed in the province. That's just one example. I know that the province and some of the First Nations up in the north of where this transmission line is going, they're looking, how do they electrify their communities? That becomes another path. And they start looking at what's the best route to get there? Do you go by where there is hydroelectric potential? Again, that comes down to talking to the people that live in the area, talking to the people that have aspirations, and forming those partnerships and working through the details.
Right. So I'm going to go to the audience questions now. Now I feel like I'm at a campfire. I'm going to talk. Here we go. Okay, the first
You're doing
one.
a great job.
Yeah, okay. All right. The first question is, are you worried about the regulatory overreach as it relates to the energy policy in Ontario and the possibility that it would deter industry investment in Ontario over the long run?
I think the regulators in this province are amazing. And I say this when I go to marketing tours. We have a predictable regime in Ontario. Now, does that mean that there's not going to be challenges and bumps? No, it doesn't. There will be. But it is a predictable regime. It's well structured. In fact, what you see, we saw New Brunswick is copying part, Nova Scotia, I should say, is copying part of what we have in Ontario. Alberta, about 6 months ago, started to adopt parts of the regulatory regime that we have in Ontario. So the independent electric system operator, the Ontario Energy Board, they look around at all the regulators around the world. They try to take the best practices and bring them back here. So no, I'm not concerned about our regulatory regime. I think it's great, it's predictable, it's stable, and it's, more importantly, there's really good people running it.
The next one is technology and using it to our advantage within the grid is going to be critical. How is Hydro One deploying new methods and technology to make sure we optimize the current grid and build efficiency?
I gotta use that word, partnerships. We don't have all the answers. There's a lot of really smart people out there doing innovation and bringing ideas forward. The OEB has a sandbox, which is where you can take new ideas and trial them in real time. We're working with them on that. We've got a few trials going on there. Whenever we do procurement, we always reach out and say, what is new? What is different? How can we adjust how we're approaching our business to get better? Our transmission lines, for example, You may be surprised to know Hydro One doesn't actually build transmission lines. What we do is we go to the street and we contract out to the people that actually build these transmission lines all over the world. And we say, what innovation can you bring back? What is it that we're not doing that we should do? What's new out there that we should try? So we're always looking to do it better and incorporate new technology, knowing that the world is going to be digital, knowing the world is going to have more control, the electrons are going to be moving in different directions, and knowing there's going to be more market participants.
I like this rapid fire thing. That's good.
Do you want me to slow down?
No, that's good. Right to the point. That's how I like it.
This audience is never shy about giving good questions.
Do you believe that that only bigger is better? Do you believe that only bigger is better? Is there a place for medium-sized municipal-owned distributors?
That's a hot potato. So let me answer that by saying I don't believe there should only be one distributor in the province. I do believe there is a minimum threshold in size that you're going to have to achieve in order to make the investments that we're going to need and in order to keep overhead costs at a reasonable level. You talk about spending that $400 billion, I think it was Jerome mentioned that came out in the Pathways to Decarbonization that was published by the Independent Electric System Operator. That didn't include distribution. That was $400 billion on transmission and generation alone. The numbers I read are anywhere from doubling or tripling to the investment that has to go into the distribution side. So that is going to be really difficult for municipalities that have been used to getting a dividend or a payment from their local distribution company. It's going to be difficult for them to raise the equity and the financing to build that to make that kind of investment. So I think there is a role for larger. I'm not going to say where that cutoff is, but I think that some of them are just too small going forward in order to participate in the transition.
You mentioned that fossil fuels will never not be needed, at least in your lifetime. How does the future fit, in your view, specifically with hydro and natural gas?
You guys keep putting me on the spot here. Chatham House rules, right? We're going to need a lot of sources of generation. So for example, right now in Ontario, you're seeing our gas turbines running more frequently. They need to run more frequently. Why? Because we're refurbishing the nuclear fleet. It takes time to build the infrastructure. Natural gas is a lot less emitting than coal. So we're going to probably have that with us for a long time. But what I expect to see is that its use is going to diminish over time as we build out more battery storage, as we build up more renewables, as the new nuclear fleet comes online, you're going to see less dependence on it. It's wonderful, like hydroelectric, it can scale up very quickly and it can come down, so it's probably always going to have a role there, but it's going to be a lot less than it is today.
So what partnerships are you fostering with the labor unions to address the development of a diverse and skilled workforce? What more is needed? We're
really fortunate. We have a lot of unions we deal with. The main ones have been LIUNA, Power Workers, Society, and CUSW. And each one of them understands the importance of diversity. Not because it's the cool thing to do, but because by diversity you bring new ideas, different thought processes, and you create a richer and better future for everybody. So they've been very open to partnering with us in terms of bringing in apprenticeships, setting up targets, setting up special programs to train disadvantaged groups, new immigrants, other groups that might not have had access to these careers in the past. And we're going to continue to push down that path.
How is Hydro One supporting the growth in the mining industry in Northern Ontario?
Well, I'll go back to, we've got the Waasigan transmission line. We're building 3 transmission lines in Northeast Ontario. That's to support Algoma's electrification of their arc blast furnaces. We've been looking at, with the ISO, about how do we strengthen the lines going up to the north. We know there's lots of investment going into Timmins and the area around there. We've got lots of investment in the northwest. Gold mining, we've had discussions with the different miners. What do they need? What's their time frame? We're working with them to try to make those a reality. We want them to be, we do not want them to be held up because they can't get the power, and we don't want them to have to bring in diesel generators, which is what some of them are doing today to move their projects forward.
So you mentioned transformation. What role does Hydro One customer play in this transformation?
The Hydro One customer is going to play the role that they want to play. Let me just expand on that for a minute. So what we're seeing in the industrial sector, industries that have an option to get off of a carbon-based fuel are making that transition, and they're making it because their customers are demanding of it. It gives them a competitive advantage in the market, so that's why they're doing it. So those are very active customers. You're seeing other customers who want to be able to manage their load, so avoid that peak period when the peak demand is up so they can reduce their overall costs. They're investing in battery solutions. We're seeing residential consumers who have electric vehicles investing in putting those electric chargers into their home. In the future, you're going to see a world where those electric vehicles can become a battery source for the entire grid. So when there's surplus generation and the distribution grid's not running at capacity, we can use that to charge those dispersed batteries. I think there's about 8 million vehicles in Ontario. So imagine at some point in the future, there'll be 7 or 8 million electric vehicles. That's a massive battery. And you can put that back on the grid if you choose. So that's a choice the consumer can make. Do they want to participate in the energy transition, either through demand-side management or storage, or by buying more energy-efficient devices or not? I think you're going to see more incentives encouraging residential customers to switch over.
How much of the future of the energy mix in Ontario will rely on just electricity? Are you concerned with recent OEB decisions that hinder expansion for infrastructure writ large, for instance, natural gas?
As I said, natural gas is going to be with us for a long time. It's a good fuel. It has a role to play. Right now, I could maybe ask the room, but I know a couple people in this room would be able to answer the question very accurately. You know, the amount of energy that gets consumed in Ontario, only 16% of it comes from electricity. It's a very small slice. So even if we triple it, we're still below 50%. There's a tremendous opportunity there in how we can decarbonize the economy. And it shows there's still going to be some of those other residual fuels, and the hard to decarbonize sectors are still going to be with us.
What would you like to see? Would you like to see a tax credit for transmission investment within the provinces, given the amount of need? Do you have the ear of government on that?
Somebody must have been with me in Ottawa about a month ago. That was one of the purposes of the trip. If you want to, we've got to stop thinking about just tying provinces together. We need stronger interties between the provinces, but we need stronger connections within the provinces. So for example, the connection that runs east-west across Ontario. If the federal government wants to decarbonize the economy, why wouldn't they provide tax credits for that as well? Because that is part of the solution. It's a big part of the solution. Most of our interties go north-south in this country. Most of the energy goes down to the U.S. We have tremendous resources. We've got the hydroelectric resource in Quebec. We've got a fantastic nuclear resource we're building out in Ontario. Manitoba's got hydro. Why wouldn't we tie those together and work off the advantages of each other?
Excellent. Well, that's it. I think we're on time and on point, hopefully on budget.
A year early and under budget. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael and David. I'd now like to welcome Scott Anderson, the CEO of the Ontario Home Builders Association, to offer the appreciation remarks. Scott.
Wow, this room looks even bigger from up here. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here today on behalf of the Ontario Home Builders Association, representing over 4,000 companies in the residential construction industry. I'd also like to extend my appreciation to both Hydro One and the Empire Club for inviting me to participate today on this crucial conversation about the future of Ontario's growth and development. As it's been said, we're in the midst of a very remarkable period of change with profound transformations rippling across industries. As the provincial government embarks on an ambitious economic development agenda, the demand for housing surges in tandem with the need for reliable energy infrastructure. This is a reminder that the challenges and the opportunities that we face are intertwined, and that our responses must be equally dynamic and collaborative. OHBA members bear the vital responsibility of building the housing supply and provide the choices that Ontarians need. And this task is not just about meeting numbers. It's about creating homes and communities where families can thrive. I grew up in a small rural town in Northern Ontario. When I was about 4 years old, I had the unique opportunity to actually watch my dad build the home that we would ultimately live in, and where my parents would live for the next 45 years. I remember watching my father clearing the land with a chainsaw and seeing various contractors coming in with a variety of machinery to create the space where our home would ultimately live or ultimately stand. Back then, one of the biggest challenges that my dad had were finding which friends and neighbors were available to help him build the foundation and frame the walls and to maybe decide what brand of beer should be on the job site. And the issues of getting the right approvals and permits and getting our home connected to the electricity grid were such a minor consideration in the overall task of building a family home. Fast forward to now, which is more decades than I'm willing to admit, the home construction industry has become one of the most highly regulated industries in the province. It requires every player in the home building industry and space to think and act differently and to deliver and meet the emerging demands for new homes. And we are facing shortages in the housing supply at levels that we have not seen since the post-World War II era. And at the time of families building their own homes is no longer the mainstream solution. We know that as an industry, we have the talent, the desire, and the resolve to meet the province's target of 1.5 million new homes by 2031. But it's going to take a unified effort by all of the parties, municipalities, First Nations, provincial partners, stakeholders, and the industries, to make the substantial impacts needed to accelerate development and construction across the province. We need an environment that dismantles barriers, reduces red tape, and implements measures that will allow us to deliver the homes that Ontarians need and at a price that they can afford. Most recently, we were encouraged to see the provincial government signaling their commitment to working with municipalities to streamline housing approvals. But this is just one piece of the puzzle. And that's where the combined efforts of stakeholders and partners like Hydro One come in. Hydro One plays a vital role in the delivery on this housing supply, energizing communities across Ontario. The initiatives focused on modernizing systems and streamlining processes that we heard about today demonstrates Hydro One's desire and commitment to accelerating connections, and so that we can deliver the keys faster to eager new homeowners. The home building industry and the energy sector both have invested significant effort and resources to modernizing our thinking and our approach. And that's why I'm encouraged by what we heard today from David about the opportunities for the home construction industry to better align with a modern Hydro One. This is also so that we can deliver more new homes faster and meet the needs of a growing Ontario. And we also know that no single entity can address these complex issues that we face alone. Whether it's navigating regulatory hurdles, harnessing new technologies, or ensuring access to essential services like energy, collaboration is the key to delivering on this potential. Our province's future growth hinges on our ability to meet the housing and energy needs for current and future Ontarians. And the continued challenges ahead will demand a collective response. Thank you again, David, for sharing with us how a modern Hydro One will continue to be a key player in supporting the viability of Ontario's future. And thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today.
Thank you, Scott, and thanks again to all our sponsors for their support and everyone joining us in person or online. As a club of record, all Empire Club of Canada events are available to watch and listen to on demand on our website. The recording of this event will be available shortly, and everyone registered will receive an email with the link. On Thursday, May 23rd, join us for a behind-the-scenes glimpse of the Paris 2024 Olympic Games with David Shoemaker, CEO of the Canadian Olympic Committee. On Thursday, May 30th, join us and the Honourable Prabmeet Sarkaria, the Minister of Transportation for the Government of Ontario, to learn about his vision for a better, faster, and safer transportation future in Ontario. Thank you for all your participation, your support. Have a good afternoon. This meeting is now adjourned.